Hey guys, it's Josh, and welcome back to the Not So Bad Bachelor Pad. Today, we are joined by Krista Melanson. Krista, tell me a little bit about your story, your journey. How'd you get here?
Well, I feel your dumpster fire. That's sort of defined me for a while. I live in Canada. I have 3 kids. I'm a single mom in terms of parenting. I'm no longer single. But I was a single mom for years. I worked 3 jobs trying to make ends meet. I was tired. I was cranky. I was doing the best I could, but dumpster fire really adequately describes the way my life was. It was so hectic, and I'm actually a chef by trade, and I left the cooking business to have babies because I couldn't imagine being 8 months pregnant standing in the stove. So, and I went into sales for a while, but then realized I had a fear of rejection. I have made my way through in the world. I met my amazing partner 6 years ago, and I'm currently working as a relationship coach, specializing in dating over 40.
Well, I also have a background in the food service culinary world.
Nice.
And working a line is no easy task as it is. So with the little bump, I can see how that make it a little harder. Maybe it's like a little table to help you whisk. But well, like you said, we're glad you are now in a space where you're happy, you're having fun, and the limitations are limitless or non-existent. There are no limitations in this realm right now. Today, I think it was appropriate to have you on because I love getting outside perspectives for one. And then 2, the dating game, it's so funny. I hate calling it a game. I just don't have a better term for it. There's so many nuances that happen from year to year. So dating in your teens and 20s is so much different than dating in your 30s. And then you work with 40 plus. So you've been through kind of all the eras of dating. So I, as somebody who has a little bit more experience out there, I'm so eager to pick your brain because I'd like to know.
I also have a 20-year-old daughter, a 21-year-old daughter, so I talk her in off the ledge with dating all the time too. So it's like
no matter where you are in your life, every crisis is the biggest crisis, especially when it comes to romance. Like, I'm going to be alone forever at 18 or 21. And you're like, babe, you're 21. Like, you'll have plenty of opportunity to find somebody.
Yep, I have had this conversation exactly with my daughter. Mother, I'm never going to meet anyone. I'm like, Paris, your entire life is ahead of you. Relax.
It's like, we're just in the first chapter. Take it easy. So obviously you said you were a single mother, which means that you have kids. How many do you have? Do you just have...
I have 3.
3? Okay. Are they all pretty close in age, or were they spaced out?
My oldest is 24, my middle one is 21, and then my youngest is 18. The boy is the last one.
That's a nice little cluster. Even though they're at different stages in their life, they're all also at the same stage, if that makes sense.
Well, the interesting thing is when they're young, when they're 2, 5, and 8, they're radically different in age. But now that they're adults, more or less, they come in closer to age. So it is kind of nice. They're a good age for the rest of their lives, I think.
I'm a little similar. Me and all my siblings, we're almost all 4.5 years apart.
Perfect.
So 17 years in total, I believe. Difference from 1 to 4, but
that's a long time child rearing, and your mom having babies from that far apart.
I said my dad was a saint for this because we all have different moms. He didn't want to put one person through that much childbirth, so he gave us all different moms.
Well, men hold their youthfulness for longer, right? And I mean, you're not going through the physical strain of actually giving birth to a baby, so it's easier for men to have babies at all different ages. So that's kind of cool. I like that, though.
Really, till almost the day we die, like we can just keep producing.
Procreate. Yep.
Yeah. I was like, we shouldn't, but we can.
Oh, there's enough, I think, like very much older gentlemen, usually with larger bank accounts, who have young babies.
I think even though we work with 2 different age groups, there's a lot of similarities just in romance in general. So when I ask you these questions, I was like, I'm pretty sure I'm going to find some connection to make it more feasible for everybody listening, some of my younger bachelors even included, because there's like not a weird, but there are a few weird pockets of listeners we have. We have people in that 18 to 20 range, and then we have majority are 25 to 30, but I just checked like a couple weeks ago, and we're actually starting to see a push from the 50 and up crowd. So,
interesting.
I
Well,
was
like I
like,
said, I have an 18-year-old and a 21-year-old, right? So I understand how everything works with the younger people as well as the older people.
I want to get your opinion on this because I think we might be in the same camp. How do you feel about dating apps?
I mean, dating apps get such a bad rep, and everybody says, at least the older people, that like my daughter and my son, I don't think would dream of meeting somebody in person. And the older people hate dating apps because it's like, oh, well, they're full of scammers and everything. My thought on the whole dating app is that a dating app is a place to make a connection. You're not supposed to do the dating on the app, right? It's like, in the olden days, you'd meet somebody at the grocery store, you'd meet somebody at work, or you meet somebody at school. This broadens, the dating apps broaden your reach so that you can meet people from all over the city, all over the area where you are. And it's good to connect with somebody via the dating apps, but I think you don't go further than the initial conversation before you meet that person in person, because you don't know if you have connections on any chemistry on a dating app. You need to know if there's chemistry between you and the person you're talking to. So even with my daughter, I always say, don't chat with him on the apps, meet him in person within, a week or whatever. And, it's the best way to do it. For younger people, for sure. I mean, I would go so far as to say have 3 or 4 dates a week, right? Not with the same person, but you want to,
Right.
Meet 3 or 4 different people a week in person. And that's how you, especially if you're in a big central metropolitan area, right? There's so many people. You need to work
So
your way
many.
through.
And I agree with that. I've always been a big proprietor of that. Dating's like a buffet. Like, don't be afraid. Don't fill your plate up with just one thing. Get a little bit of everything. Get your money's worth, is what I say.
You're young, you don't know what you want. So the best way is to meet different people and see what appeals to you and what doesn't.
Right. And I do agree with you. You said within like the first week, go on a date with guys. If you can't lock down a date within the first, I want to say 48 hours of matching with somebody, then it's probably not going to happen. You're going to come up with a reason not to. She's going to come up with a reason not to. And then it's just going to lead to ghosting. So I would say 48 hours. That's the key. I was like, you get in, get the match, make them laugh, get a number. That way you can take it off the dating app. Because
Agreed.
I like what you said, the point of dating apps isn't to do the dating. It's just to find somebody to date.
Exactly. And you can get too emotionally connected to somebody on a dating app and they're behind a screen, right? You have no idea who they are. So you have a little bit of witty conversation. Anybody can have a witty conversation, but you don't know what they're like. Then you start to get emotionally invested. I've seen my daughter do this and I've been, swearing at her going, Paris, you've got to stop talking to this guy. If he won't meet you, whatever. But you don't know who they are on the apps. You don't know who they are through a screen. So if you start to get emotionally invested in every person you chat with and you chat with them for a month, you're just setting yourself up for failure. You have no idea who they are or what they are. So it's so much better to move it to in person as quickly as possible.
I could not agree more. Keeping that in mind, what would you say is the secret sauce to crafting the best dating profile? Because that's really where it starts. Your success or fail rate starts with what people see.
Well, your dating app is your sales page, right? So you want to make sure you grab somebody. I think something that's really important with your bio is your profile is to not give everything in your profile. It shouldn't read like a resume. Keep it light and keep it interesting and make sure that there's something there that's interesting that is a good conversation starter, right? So, the example I always use is you post a picture of you hanging off the Eiffel Tower with the newspaper in your hand so that somebody can message you and say, hey, what's with the newspaper? right? You want it to be interesting. You want it to be a little bit mysterious, but you want it to start a conversation. And you want to grab their attention, but not give them too much. So you keep their attention so that they want more. The other thing is with the pictures is to make sure you don't put group pictures in, because there's nothing worse, right? You put a picture with you and your best friends and they go, "Oh, he's really good looking," but that's not you, right? So you've got to put, and less necessary with younger people than with older people, but you've got to keep the pictures current too, so that there's no
you don't feel like you're being catfished or anything like that. Yeah,
100%. But a lot of people these days are doing a reverse catfish thing too, which is kind of interesting and not an entirely bad idea. Is they'll put bad pictures of themselves,
right?
So that when they meet the person, they're surprised. It only goes upwards from there, and there's no shock, no surprise. And you don't want the first impression to be disappointment.
It's like, you're right. Your profile page is your marketing, it's your product. And every salesman knows that you want to under promise and over deliver.
Exactly.
With the rise of online dating, how do you think that individuals can steer clear of potential mismatched dating or scam? Because there are even a lot of, we call them bot accounts out there when you're on dating profiles. Like, how do you kind of discern who do you think would be a good match, or is this even a real person that I'm interacting with?
Well, I'll start with the whether or not they're real people. Sometimes it's really hard to tell. And, there's a few things you can look for. And I am not meaning to insult anybody by saying this, but a lot of times if they're in a military uniform, then that's an indicator that, they're not exactly who they say they are. Puppies. Puppies is a weird thing, but if they've got puppies in their profile picture, that is supposed to be something that I guess makes them seem soft and gentle and kind or whatever. So puppies is a bad thing. Make sure that when you're reading their words, sometimes you can tell by the way they structure a sentence.
Yeah, the phrasing.
Yep, and it's formality, I find, that is, casual slang, whatever, that's not the issue. It's a more formal, like, "Hello, it is very lovely to meet you on this fine day. I was wondering if you would like to be friends with,"
Okay.
that is a dead giveaway when it's that formal, because nobody speaks like that, right? I
That's
mean,
true. Yeah.
I'm in my 50s and I don't speak like that. So it's the formal phrasing that I think is a good one. If the pictures, if they have a series of pictures where they are just drop dead model gorgeous, male or female, you want to tend to question that a little bit too, because real people have real pictures and they don't look perfect in all of their pictures, and in fact, if you're creating a profile, you want to have the real side of you as well as, the polished side of you. So you got to watch out for the ones that have all these amazing, perfect, staged pictures. I saw,
Right.
what was it? It was a TikTok video I saw recently talking about fake profiles. And there are people who will go out and they'll take, Joshua Jones, your profile pictures and everything, and set it up with your name and everything. And they'll be dating people with your identity. And it was happening to all sorts of different people. One guy said he had to contact someone's family and say, "I need you to know that this is not me. And your daughter is dating somebody who's fake, because this is, I didn't create this. I haven't been having a conversation with them." So you do have to be really careful, but that's just another reason to meet somebody within a week, right? Because you can't hide behind a screen for long.
I completely agree. And honestly, all those points that you mentioned, I think I was pretty weary of, except for the puppy thing.
Yeah.
Because I feel like dogs dogs and cats specifically. Maybe not other pets like reptiles, arachnids, and birds, but dogs and cats, I feel like they're cheat codes sometimes. Because you're right, they do add a softer side to you. But if you're in the park or just anywhere, because anytime I walk my friends' dogs, I do get a lot more attention
They're chick magnets for sure.
100%. So I was like, I see why they're posted, but I never really thought that anybody would fake. Like, I've never used one of my friend's dogs in one of my pictures. I was like, because it's like, there's gonna come a point where I'm gonna have to prove that this thing exists, and then there's not a rent a dog, rent a pet.
Yeah, and when I see a picture of like a profile picture that has like a guy with a puppy, I'm like, that's not real. And I'll go in just for shits and giggles. I will go in and look and see, if that person has some substance, and they never do. Right? So it's like my ex-husband, when he's a teacher, so he was always off in the summer. We had a puppy, and he used to take the puppy to the beach, and he wasn't picking up girls or anything, but he said,
Right.
man, when I am at the beach with this puppy, the girls are all over me. So yeah, that's one of those things.
And also, I've noticed this because I have enough female friends where I see guy profiles. I think there are people who do it, but I think there needs to be more people who do profile coaching.
Definitely.
Because men in particular are really bad at creating profiles. I don't even want to say we're lazy. I just think some people are really bad at it. For me, when I'm looking at women's bios, I was like, if there's not a bio, automatically I'm opting out.
Mm-hmm.
If I can't discern anything from your pictures or your bio about you, I'm opting out as well. And guys, there's so many fishing photos. Like, that's a big thing. And I was like, what does this tell me about you? Like, what was your motivation in making this not just one, but multiple of your profile pictures?
I had a rule. If they had a fish in their profile picture, that was an automatic swipe left or whatever, right? So that was, but on the other hand, maybe if I was really into fishing, I would think that's great. And if fishing is super important to you, then maybe you need to have the fish in the profile picture. But for me personally, leave the fish out. Just have interesting pictures. And with my programs, I always, one of the first things we work at is fixing up the profile, because you're right, it is so important. And there's nuances. There's ways to say what you want without coming out and saying it. Like, we could Netflix and chill, but I'd love to, wake up under the Eiffel Tower or whatever, right? So then you've said, I like to travel. I want to do something. I want to have an adventure, right? But I'm okay to sit back and relax sometimes. Or you could just say, I'm looking for my last first date. So then they know that you're looking for a relationship. You're not just looking for a hookup, right?
Right.
So there's ways to say things without coming out and, like I said, making it read like a resume. Crafting the right profile is an art, and it's a really great thing to learn to be able to do it nicely.
I completely agree. And it's not overly complicated. Sometimes you just need a bit of just genuine you. If you are being authentically you in your profile, it makes it such an easier read.
For sure.
And for me, if you're not a wordsmith, like, picture's 1,000 words.
Mm-hmm.
So choose your pictures carefully that you're going to use. Like you said, maybe not as many group photos. You dancing. I used to have one of me dancing or doing something active, and I didn't have to put, I love to play frisbee golf, because you see in my pictures that I'm out on the rec, or that I'm out on the dance floor, attempting to dance. I don't know what everybody would quantify it as dancing, but I don't think it's that bad.
The other thing that is really important, though, when you're talking about doing the pictures, is if you don't like to hike, don't put that picture of that one time you went on a hike, right? Because then somebody's going to be attracted to you and say, oh, he likes to hike. This is perfect for me. And then they find out you've gone on a hike once in your life, you're never going to go again. Or if you are very much a jeans and t-shirt type of person, don't post pictures of yourself wearing a tuxedo, because it's a misrepresentation of who you are, right? And ultimately, you want people to like you for who you are. And if they don't like you for who you are, then they are not the right person for you. So there's no point in pretending to be something else.
And we've talked about this a lot this season, is performing. You shouldn't have to perform in your relationship, because you can only be on for so long. before you're going to break character, so to speak. And then what happens then? We're 2, 3, maybe a year in, and you finally give up the facade. Well, that's just been a year, however long, wasted. Or you have to then try to repitch this product to your partner, and now they have trust issues because they're like, do you even really like my cooking? You know, like,
For
do you
sure,
even
you
like
want to
doing X, Y, and Z?
for sure you want to put your best foot forward, right? Always,
Right.
right? You want to be in your, and there's a certain relaxing of our behavior that will
Mhm.
happen the more we get to know somebody, but it can't be a change. Relaxing is okay, but you're absolutely right. You need to be authentically you. You need to show the person who you are, or like you said, you end up wasting 6 months or a year and you've got to start all over again. Whereas if you had said who you were and been yourself right from the get-go, you might have made a different match, but it might have been a match that lasted for years.
This is something that I saw on your profile that really resonated with me is be the person you want to date. Can you just elaborate on that a little bit more? Because I had some thoughts on it, but I want to see what you meant by it originally.
Just like a test for me, right? Don't sit at home sad and lonely and say nobody's ever going to want to date me and hope to find a really super positive person, right? If you want to meet a positive person, then you've got to be positive yourself. If you want to be a fun person, or meet a fun person, you have to be fun yourself. Because ultimately, I believe you attract what you send out into the universe, right? So if you are sending out positive vibes and you're happy and you're fun loving and you like everybody and you make great connections and you put that into the universe, that is who you're going to attract into your world. So many people say, well, I want a guy who dresses to the nines and keeps himself perfectly, whereas, they show up in sweatpants and slippers, right? It doesn't work that way. You need to embody what it is that you're looking for. And you can't expect somebody to be perfect and overlook your imperfections, if you know what I mean. And none of us are perfect, but to a certain extent, you do not want, you can have this ideal of, the perfectly dressed woman or the perfectly dressed man with an amazing job, but you're working at Walmart in your blue vest and wearing jeans, and there's nothing wrong with that, but there's a mismatch there, right?
But do you think there's a balance between being idealistic on what you are looking for in a partner and your authentic self or who you are? Because sometimes I think we want to attract the people that we inspire to be, or
Right.
we try to punch up because we want to elevate our lives, our status in a bit. I was like, I know that I may be a sweatpants and flip flop guy, but maybe I want to be that tuxedo guy. Is that
Right.
really, wrong to try to?
I don't think it's wrong to do any of those things, right? I obviously having aspirations, wanting to grow yourself is important. The core values are the most important thing though, right? So, I mean, I use the example of tuxedo and sweatpants or whatever, but if you're looking for a good person who's good in their heart, then you need to be a good person in your heart too. Those things have to match. But wanting to grow and better yourself, especially at a young age, you're starting off, as long as you have goals that you're aiming towards, that's great. I think that's fine. But if you have absolutely no ambition and you don't want to better yourself, is what I'm saying, is that's when you shouldn't be aiming for that other person, right? Because we all
Okay.
reach our goals and achieve success at different times. So, my daughter who's 21, she's in university, and she could meet a guy who's 25. That's only 4 years difference, who's already starting his law career, right? Does that mean that she's worthy of him or not equal to him? No, it means that, like you said, she's in the growing process of getting there, but she knows she wants to be there. She knows that she's aspiring to something else, right? So find somebody who shares your ideals and your values. And for me, I always encourage people to understand that ambition is one of those values, right? So,
100%.
and it's the same thing, right? If you are a lawyer and you work really hard and you meet somebody who's more casual and relaxed and enjoys working, as few hours as they want because they want to enjoy life more, which is great. That's me through and through. But if somebody's super hardworking and ambitious and the other person doesn't have that same ambition, then there's going to be a disconnect there, right? It has
Right.
nothing to do with financial or superficial or visual or anything. It's a frame of mind and the ambition. But mostly what I'm saying with the being the person you want to date is more of the positivity and the outlook on life and that type of thing, right?
That's kind of what I envisioned when I first saw it. Is people say it 1,000 different ways. Be your authentic self. Just showing up how you are. I always say this: the most simple principles are sometimes the ones that hit the most.
Mm-hmm.
It's such an easy thing to do, but we overcomplicate it because whether we think that we may not be good enough on our own, so we have to have the facade, we have to become this character. But whether you are playing a game, let's so to speak, because we know when we present ourselves a certain way that we might get a certain response. And if that's what you're into, if you're into playing games, then I can't stop you. All I can
No.
do is hope that, eventually you reach a point where you're like, what am I doing? How did I end up here? How did
Yeah.
I go 30, 40 years of just aimlessly dating and not have any real development or attachment to show for it?
Yeah, exactly. You set yourself up for failure if you're pretending to be something you're not. Like you said, if somebody's into playing games, that's great. And there are so many people, and I hate to say it, but women are, a big offender with this, right? Playing games and being all sweet and loving until they're in a relationship and then the claws come out or whatever, right? If that's your thing, that's your thing. But the way I look at it is those are not the people that I'm speaking to. I'm speaking to the people who are genuine, who are looking for a genuine connection, and they want to be themselves and they want to meet somebody else who's being themselves too, right?
100%. And speaking of wanting to really meet somebody, we started off by talking about just apps. We said apps in general. With your clients, with your personal experience, have you found that maybe some apps have actually been better or more successful with finding quality dates, we'll say, than others?
Not necessarily. I firmly believe that you don't have to pay for a dating app.
Mm-hmm.
So that is my one caveat. I met my partner on Tinder. My daughter, I think my oldest daughter, she was 18 at the time. She said, "Mom, I'm going to put you on a dating app." And I went, "What do you mean you're putting me on a dating app?" And she said, "I'm going to sign you up and make a Tinder account." And I said, "You can't do that. That's for hookups." She goes, "No, Mom, that's Grinder." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." I had no idea, right? But different people have different success with different apps. And I don't think one is better than the other. The thing about Tinder gets a bad rep, but Tinder is very easy. Now,
That's so true.
and that's the appeal of Tinder, but also people can be lazy, which sort of mitigates some of its value. A lot of people really like Hinge, and not for any specific reason, but they seem to find good matches. It's funny, the older people, the women don't like Bumble because they don't feel like they should have to make the first move. They don't want to be in their masculine energy. But with the younger people, Bumble suits them because the women like to make the first move and step in and fire the first shot. So that's always good. Meets bagel is another one that's interesting because you can see who's around you right at that moment. So getting back to you want to get together and talk to somebody right away. Well, coffee meets bagel tells you who's around you right now.
That's something I never really thought about as far as the age dynamic, because I think I have it the opposite. I think I have some of my Bumble preferences geared towards my older range that I'm comfortable seeing, and my Tinder is set for younger. So maybe I might maybe if you're having trouble, guys, landing a match, or because there's so many different aspects that go into finding that Goldilocks effect to find a match. Maybe that's one thing you can try if you are into people your own age or a little older. Maybe you should flip it. If you are on Bumble, let's bring that age down a little bit to maybe your age or a little younger, wherever you're comfortable. And if you're on Tinder or Hinge, apps where you get the chance to start the conversation, maybe move it towards a more older crowd where they might be waiting on you to make the first move. I like that.
Yeah, exactly. Because, I mean, I'm a firm believer that whatever people are looking for is up to them. Who they are, what they are is fine. But when you're talking about any relationship, but more specifically a heterosexual relationship, you want to have the balance of feminine and masculine energy, right? And
Yes.
if you have a woman who's always in her masculine energy, that's hard for the guy to be in his masculine energy. And that doesn't draw together. Like two masculine energies are just going to combat each other, right? That's why some people have problems with Bumble. The women have problems with Bumble is because it doesn't allow them to be in their feminine energy, which is receiving, the attention and the intentions of the man with his masculine energy. So it's something to consider, is that the man, you being in your masculine energy, and the women you're dating being in their feminine energy, it just meshes well. And it sounds like an antiquated concept, but it's really not. It's, the masculine and feminine energy is always going to be part of relationships.
And we talked about that, I believe, last week, guys, with we were saying, especially right now, it seems like we're demonizing traditional or gender roles, when he said rules are the opposite of chaos. I was like, having structure has never really been a bad thing. So why all of a sudden is that a bad thing? And I was like, you know what? That's actually a fair point, because when we have these designated positions, everybody knows, what their role is, what their function is, and we can operate better as a team. I think we should maybe start applying those ideologies to the apps, especially.
Yeah.
How do you expect to be the breadwinner or the head of the household if you're always allowing your partner to live in their masculine? They say opposites attract,
Right.
like and like repel each other. So these are classic principles that we have started to forget in this modern age of dating. So thank you for reiterating that and making that a common theme in your practice, or probably something you talk about.
And to be clear, Josh, I mean, you can have a woman who is very much in her masculine energy, and she's attracted to men who are in their feminine energy, right? And
100%.
I've got, like, one of my best friends, he and his partner, he's in his masculine energy and his partner is in his feminine energy, right? So the word masculine and feminine doesn't necessarily have to apply to specific genders. In this case, it's more behaviors, right?
Right.
So, I mean, you will, and you can see if you think about movies, but you can probably think of a couple friends, who are in relationships where there is a woman who is in her masculine energy. And that's when you get like the career making woman and the stay at home dad, right? You still have the masculine, feminine energy. They're just in different bodies.
I see and agree with that. And that's why it's so hard. And I think that's where some of the pushback comes from when you say gender roles. Because you have so many family structures they're so versatile. There's so many iterations of them now where it's not just X and Y chromosomes, or, sometimes you have X and X, XY and XY,
Yeah.
a plethora altogether. But I guess behavior roles it's not, I don't know. I've never heard it, but maybe that's a better definition.
Well, how about this? The masculine energy is very much a doing energy, and the female energy is a receiving energy. So you can say one of you has to be in the doing energy and one of you has to be in the receiving energy. right? We don't even need to use the gender names, male and
Mhm.
female. It's a receiving versus a doing or a giving energy, which makes sense, right? One of
Right.
you is giving, and the other one is receiving what that person is giving.
I like that because I always try to steer away from dominant and submissive because just to me, I just don't really care for the ring of it.
100%.
But like you said, doer and receiver, maybe that's some verbiage that we can start adapting in into our vocabularies. Because like I said, the dating scape is always changing, and how we communicate with each other and our groups that we affiliate with is also changing just as fast. So maybe this is the next phase, guys. Doers, receivers. We're
Look
gonna
at
work.
us.
We're gonna work that out.
We are forging new paths in dating, Josh.
I want to take a break, and we call this section the quickie questions.
Okay.
And it's just a few questions where we really get to know you as a person. Being that you are a dating coach, I think this is a great question to ask because everybody puts us up on these platforms that we must be the most evolved, we must be the most like ahead of the game. When really I was like, we're just normal people who think we just have it together we just have it a little bit more together than the most. So the first question I have is, what is your favorite way to receive intimacy? And it doesn't have to be sexual or physical. It can be emotional or however you define intimacy. What's your favorite way of receiving it?
I'm a very tactile person, so for me, it would be holding hands or kissing.
I say this, it's a classic. It's a tried and true classic for a reason. A good kiss will never go out of style.
Absolutely.
100%. Now, one thing that I often tell people, they're like, what got you into the space? And I was like, I had enough bad dates or I was, I was the worst date enough times where I realized maybe I needed to make a change. What's one thing that you think that you can still work on or improve as a partner?
Well, I encourage people not just in dating, but in relationships in general. And one thing that I talk to people about that I am still very much guilty of is second guessing myself and not believing in myself enough. You know, that worry that, oh, if I say this, he's going to be mad. Or if I do this, you know, if I ask him to do something for me, he's going to think I'm a burden. I'm still guilty of doing that. And I shouldn't do it. And I should trust myself and trust my relationship a little more. But I think we all have these moments of insecurity. And yeah, I'm no different. I definitely make that mistake every so often.
Well, the last question I have in this little iteration, and I not to just skip past what you said, because a lot of the time I think it's very common that we second guess ourselves because no matter how far we've come or how far we've yet to go, there's always this little voice that says, am I right? Or maybe I'm overreacting. I don't have all the information. So I think that's a great thing to realize. And like you said, you should back yourself. I would say this. I was like, I have to back myself 100% of the time, even when I'm wrong, so that at least I can say I stood up.
Yep.
I showed up. Because so many times we may doubt ourselves, but we are right. We may not have the proof. There's that intangible thing that's our gut, that sixth sense, but we just let it go by, and we miss so many opportunities. Whether that's in our career when we potentially could have made a sale or gotten a promotion, it's I feel like my partner's not being faithful, but I didn't say anything, and I just allowed this to go on. Or maybe I saw that we were parting ways, and if I would have reached out, maybe we could have worked.
Yeah.
So I would say you never know what that maybe is. So go ahead, just take that step. Like I said, the last question I had for you though is, what's a skill that you're currently working on right now?
A skill that I'm currently working on. A skill that I'm currently being better at feeling my feelings and not just trying to suppress feelings when they come up. You know, like fear of is my business going to continue to grow, or is it going to, go backwards or whatever, which I think is sort of normal. But instead of going, no, telling myself, no, it's going to be fine, everything's going to be great, I allow myself to feel these things and think through them and say, okay, so what happens if this doesn't turn out the way I thought it would? Well, I could do this, I could do this, I could do this. Okay, there are options if it doesn't go the way I want it to. Or even with my relationship, if I'm worrying about something, or my relationship's pretty great, so I don't worry that much about it. But it's feeling those feelings no matter what they are, instead of pushing them down and not allowing yourself and putting this false positivity, like everything's great, everything's great, everything's great, when everybody has those moments when they're down and just feeling, crappy. You have low energy days, and it's okay to feel those. And so I'm allowing myself to feel my feelings more deeply rather than just suppressing them and always pretending everything's okay.
That is an amazing thing, and it's really tough for a lot of people. One of the things I'm constantly working with my friends and my clients with is your reactions are valid. And that doesn't mean that I'm saying it's okay to overreact or that you can do anything unwarranted or outlandishly. But when something happens to you, no matter how big or small your reaction to it, it's okay. You have the right to feel and experience that and react however you want.
Exactly.
But don't live in that moment too long.
Exactly.
Because another thing that somebody said this season that I love, that I stole and I'm gonna live by, is feelings aren't fact. I was like, as much as you feel this way, that doesn't mean it's the truth, or that it's not the end all be all, because there's so many other things. Or even though earlier I said, if you have that gut feeling, go for it, say something. Sometimes you have to be like, hey, I was wrong. I had a feeling, it didn't pan out. That's okay. I'm sorry. Let's move on.
Yeah.
Like I said, I had a feeling, I acted on it. I wasn't in the right. Okay. We just continue to progress.
Yep, exactly. Feel your feelings and unapologetically. You cannot help how you feel about something, and like you said, how you react, right? Your reaction is often without thinking. If there's a minute between something happening and you reacting, then you've thought about it. But if it's just your initial reaction, it is your reaction. You're allowed to do that. That's okay. It's
Right.
how you deal with things going forward that makes a big difference.
I feel like this is just one of the best places that we can wrap today's episode, because who doesn't want to end on a happy note? But before we do that, Krista, I want to allow you the time to just share any last minute thoughts. What are you working on? I know earlier you talked about your programs and stuff. What's big that's coming down the pipeline for you this year?
I have just like a 6-week dating attraction boot camp that I'm also promoting right now, the new year, for anybody who's saying, I want to find love in 2024. Well, this is a great way to sort of jumpstart that by getting, in the right frame of mind and understanding what you want and setting up your profile and doing all of those things. But I want to make sure that I mention on Facebook, my profile is Krista Melanson, just my name. And anybody can go on there and see me. But if you want to DM me, I have because we talked a lot about profiles. I have like a freebie profile video that I send people. If somebody wants it, they can just send me a DM and I'll send it to them. It's no strings attached or anything, but just to help tweak their profile and get some ideas, some concrete ideas of how they can sort of gear it towards what it is that they want. And I use an example of somebody who's looking for hookups, somebody who's looking for casual dating, and somebody who wants a long-term relationship. And it just talks a bit about how you can optimize your profile. So that's a great one that I like to send out to people, and a lot of people find it really, really helpful.
Well, guys, you know how we like free, so definitely take the time to go check out our Facebook page and all of our other links that I'm going to leave down in the descriptions. Because I say this time and time again, today could be the first step on your journey to finding the person you spend the rest of your life with. So don't be afraid to take that step. We're both here with you, supporting you. This episode needs to be shared, not just with you, not just with your friends, with everybody. To leave a thumbs up, 5 stars, leave a comment, leave a review, because really the more you guys interact, the more people that this goes out to, and the more people that we can potentially start helping them find their forever partners. So do that. Just do the decent thing and help people find love by sharing this episode. I will see all you amazing bachelors and bachelorettes on the next episode of the Not So Bad Bachelor Pad. See you guys.
Thanks.